The sky was cloudy, and the rain poured heavily. A man and a woman walked together across a bridge. They stopped at the riverbank, where the water flowed rapidly, while continuously staring at it. The man said that the river in front of them was truly a man-eating river. The woman beside him, who called the man sensei, invited him to go together. The man smiled and agreed. With a red rope, they tied it to each of their hands. After tying the rope, the man told the woman, named Sa-chan, that from now on they would always be together forever. But unexpectedly, they were standing in the middle of the road, and suddenly a truck sped towards them. The lovers could do nothing, they just stood there silently and resigned. Then, a narrator's writing appeared, saying that today, a certain great author and his lover left this world. A light shone from a place that looked like a church. The man earlier was seen sleeping on the floor. He was still half conscious. Then he tried to sit up and look around. He now understood that this might be the world after they had died. It turned out that the place had a more Western style. Then there was a voice of a girl from afar, saying that this was not the world after death. She appeared behind the man earlier and said, "Welcome, adventurer." She introduced herself as Annette. The man was named Dazai Osamu, but because he was often called Sensei, as he was a writer, we will call him that. Annette then invited him to look out the window. It turned out they were in a very tall building, and a vast forest spread out in front of them, with dragons flying in the air. Annette said that Sensei was chosen and teleported to a land covered in darkness, Zauberberg. Sensei was chosen to become a hero who would illuminate that world. Sensei thought that meant he had failed to commit double suicide and entered that strange world. Sensei then held his head, feeling dizzy and regretting his very embarrassing life. But it seemed Annette did not listen to Sensei. She turned around and said that Sensei had a mission, which was… Before she could finish her sentence, Annette saw a glass bottle containing tranquilizers rolling. Of course, she was shocked, and it turned out Sensei was already lying down, having just swallowed a lot of tranquilizers. Without thinking twice, Annette immediately used her magic, purifying light, detoxify, on Sensei. Instantly, Sensei woke up and opened his eyes. He then said that Annette did not need to do that, because it only disturbed him. Of course, Annette was angry. She did not understand what Sensei was thinking. She asked Sensei to get up and complete the great mission to save that world as a hero. While picking up the tranquilizers that fell on the floor, Sensei said that he did not care about what was called a mission because he was just looking for a place to die. Indifferently, Sensei ate the tranquilizers on the floor one by one. Of course, Annette was very angry and yelled at him to stop. Annette still did not know why Sensei was like that, even though he was the chosen one. Then Sensei replied that he did not ask to be chosen. Annette then asked, "Didn't Sensei get hit by a truck?" Sensei tried to remember, and he agreed. Annette then said that the truck that brought Sensei there was the Otherworld selection truck. Annette explained that among the many people in Sensei's original world who lived unhappy lives, only those who got hit by that truck could relive their lives. It was the World Transfer Service that had been provided. If the truck was directed at Sensei, it was proof that his life in his original world was unhappy. However, Sensei was given the chance to leave his old life to live in a new world. Hearing the explanation, Sensei then stood up and walked towards Annette. He brought his face closer to hers and said that the truck had interrupted the happiest moment of his life, which was a double suicide. Annette was very shocked to hear that. In her heart, Annette said she couldn't believe what she had just heard. It was clear that Sensei was saved from his unhappy life and he chose to commit suicide. But it didn't seem to matter because Annette was sure that Sensei would change his mind after he saw his stats. Every human brought to that world was given superhuman powers without exception. But how shocked Annette was when she saw Sensei's stats. His stats looked very weak. He was also poisoned, even after Annette had detoxified him. Annette was very worried, wondering if he would die. She still couldn't believe there was a human that weak. She still hoped for a special skill or exceptional ability. When Annette opened all the stat windows available, She found nothing. It turned out to be true. Sensei was very weak. She had never met an otherworlder that weak before. Very casually, Sensei got up from his seat and just walked away. Annette did not let him go. She ran and grabbed Sensei's hand. Annette apologized, saying maybe it was indeed a mistake to have brought Sensei to that world. Annette also said that Sensei did not have the ability to live in that world and did not deserve to live there. Sensei just smiled and said that this was the life he wanted. But Sensei was always branded a failure in any world he was in. Annette felt sorry to hear that, and she asked Sensei to stay in that place for a while because Sensei's condition was very weak. He could be killed by monsters immediately if he left that place. Sensei thanked Annette for her concern, but declined the offer because, in truth, he was just looking for a place to die. Sensei then walked away. Annette watched Sensei leave, but her heart was pounding. Inside, she said that Sensei was different from the others. Annette remembered her past, where she was very proud to guide reincarnations. She was very happy to meet reincarnations from another world. But she had met some annoying people. And over time, she closed her heart and became a woman who only praised heroes. That was what was on her mind all this time. Annette couldn't let Sensei go. She called out to him and ran after him, saying that at the very least, before leaving, he should take a profession. Sensei just turned slightly and said that he was born a writer. No more and no less. Sensei said goodbye and bid farewell to Annette, the woman with the beautiful ears. Annette could only be resigned and watch Sensei go. In her heart, she just realized that she had been waiting for Sensei to come to her for a long time. Sensei, who had already left the place, had reached a vast grassland. He found a signpost there, but he couldn't read it at all. And suddenly a voice whispered directly into his head. Landmark Great Plains of Ersten discovered. 5 experience points gained. Sensei, hearing that voice, felt very annoyed, but he didn't know how to stop it. He felt very tormented because he indeed suffered from migraines. Notification sounds kept popping up, making Sensei frustrated. And suddenly, there was a voice shouting. When he turned around, there was also a tree falling there. It turned out that a cat-eared girl was being entangled by a monster called the Death Tree. The girl was asking Sensei for help because the monster could kill her. Sensei just looked at her with a blank stare and a pale face. He thought to himself that he had been meeting a lot of people with strange ears today. However, deep down, Sensei found that a girl on the verge of death looked very beautiful. The girl kept asking for help, but Sensei did not respond at all. Instead, he asked the girl if he could write a novel about her. Of course, the girl was shocked and annoyed, and with a bit of a shout, she asked for help again from Sensei. Sensei then realized that the girl wanted to be rescued. He asked her to wait a moment and then reached out his hand towards her while taking a small jump. Sensei then chuckled and casually said that he couldn't reach her. The girl was naturally very confused by his behavior. She thought Sensei had magic or a sword. Then, very quickly, the monster extended its branch, ensnaring Sensei's neck, pulling him up and leaving him hanging. Sensei said that he couldn't breathe. The girl became furious, calling Sensei useless. Sensei, unfazed, calmly said that their lives wouldn't last much longer. The girl explained that the Death Tree had a skill called suction. The monster would absorb the life energy from its captured prey, and they might die in a few more minutes. Hearing this, Sensei actually said that it was good news. Naturally, the girl was confused. Sensei looked resigned, his life energy visibly starting to be drained by the Death Tree. He then appeared weak and finally collapsed helplessly. The cat-eared girl eventually resigned herself to the odd end of her life. But suddenly, there was a tremendous shake. Looking back, she saw the Death Tree changing color to a darker shade, and then its trunk cracked. This caused her and Sensei to be thrown to the ground, freeing them. She looked back again and saw the Death Tree dead and slowly disappearing. Sensei, nearby, then said that once again, he had failed to die. In Sensei's head, a notification sound appeared again, saying he had defeated the Death Tree with his poison, dealing 300 damage. The cat-eared girl could only be amazed by what had just happened. In her heart, she thought that Sensei had allowed himself to be killed so that his enemy would absorb the poison from him. Had he let the death tree kill itself by absorbing poison instead of his life energy? Now, Sensei had reached level 3, and as usual, he was very annoyed with the notification sound in his head. The cat-eared girl then stood up, approached him, and praised him, saying that Sensei was actually strong, but pretended to be weak. Sensei just sat there and lit a cigarette. He mumbled that this kind of thing kept happening. He wanted to die, but it was himself who survived. It had been like that all the time. Sensei admitted that he had tried to die 5 times and never succeeded. The cat-eared girl felt sad hearing this, but she was also grateful to Sensei for saving her life. She then had an idea to invite Sensei to her home as a thank you gesture. The girl reached out her hand to Sensei and held his hand. At that moment, Sensei remembered Sa-chan. Sensei then thought that she might have also come to that world. Sensei kept calling out the name Sa-chan. The cat-eared girl thought Sensei was calling her by that name. She tried to introduce herself, but Sensei kept calling her Sa-chan, which made her very annoyed. Sensei started walking while smiling, now knowing his purpose in that world. It was to find Sa-chan and commit double suicide. Meanwhile, Annette was praying to the gods to protect Sensei and to reunite them one day. When she finished praying, suddenly the door opened, and Sensei was there, greeting her. Of course, Annette was very happy. She stood up and ran towards Sensei, but she stopped when she saw a cat-eared girl standing next to him. Sensei then said that he wanted to ask Annette something. He was looking for a woman named Sa-chan and wondered if Annette knew where she was. Hearing that, Annette was deeply shocked. She couldn't believe that Sensei had already met many women in such a short time in that world. Time passed and Sensei and the cat-eared girl were walking in a grassy field. It turned out Annette did not know about Sa-chan's whereabouts. The girl said that her home was still far away, so she planned to take Sensei to the castle town of Roth first. She then held Sensei's hand and pulled him along. But suddenly, someone hit her hand with a stick, startling her. It turned out to be Annette, who said that holding hands with the opposite sex in public was embarrassing. Of course, the cat-eared girl was very angry and didn't understand why Annette suddenly approached them. Annette couldn't answer. She just glanced at Sensei. The cat-eared girl then said it must be because Annette was in love with Sensei. Annette, of course, denied this, explaining that as a clergy person, she had a responsibility to protect weak otherworlders. The cat-eared girl just found out that Sensei was an otherworlder, but she also understood because she saw that Sensei was very strong. Annette, of course, protested because she knew Sensei was not strong. That's why she wanted to accompany him. The cat-eared girl then said that Sensei had defeated the death tree with one attack and saved her life. Annette was immediately shocked because it turned out their relationship was already that close. Annette looked depressed, and a dark aura emanated from her body. Shortly after, Sensei found a coffin nearby. He thought it was a comfortable place for him to rest because he felt dizzy and tired since arriving in that world. Sensei then entered the coffin and lay down inside it. He asked to be woken up when they reached the city. Sensei said goodnight to Annette and Tama. The cat-eared girl was, of course, angry because her name was not Tama. She tried to say her name, but failed again because Sensei had already closed the coffin. Annette smiled happily because Sensei had called her name correctly. Annette then pulled the coffin, intending to take it to the city. It was dusk, and elsewhere, a woman was standing, gazing at the sunset. Who was that woman? Was she Sa-chan, the one Sensei was looking for? The time had reached late afternoon. Tama and Annette were working very hard together to pull the coffin containing Sensei. This made Tama very upset, and she told Sensei to walk on his own feet. But there was no response from Sensei. Tama became worried that Sensei might actually be dead. However, Annette could see Sensei's status and said that Sensei was just resting in peace. Finally, they arrived in the city. Tama woke Sensei up, and Sensei got up and came out of the coffin. Sensei looked around, observing that the other world was not so bad. Annette then invited Sensei to go to the palace to meet the king. At Roth Palace, the king received them. King Roth, whose name was Thomas, and his eldest daughter, Charlotte, greeted them warmly. The king knew they must be exhausted, so he allowed them to stay overnight in the palace's bedrooms. Tama and Annette greatly appreciated this and thanked the king sincerely. But the king had one condition. Because he loved adventurous stories, he wanted to hear a beautiful tale of their journey. Sensei then replied that he would tell what it felt like to sleep in a coffin. The king felt that Sensei was threatening him. Seeing this, Annette tried to change the subject. She said that Charlotte was very beautiful. Then the king shared that Charlotte would soon be getting married and wanted to ask Sensei and his friends for advice. The king then summoned two of Charlotte's suitors. Gomez, the valiant warrior, a tall big man wearing a mask and armor, and Otto, the wandering minstrel of love, with a harp in his hands. The king lamented that perhaps due to the Demon King's wrath, monsters had been rampant lately, but he was too old to deal with it. Therefore, he wanted to choose one of them as Charlotte's spouse and the next king. Charlotte was still unsure whom to choose, so she asked Sensei and his friends for advice on who would be a suitable match for her. The king eagerly awaited Sensei and his friends' answer. Sensei firmly replied, "How should I know?" According to him, it was an important choice for Charlotte's future, and it was not appropriate to ask adventurers like them, who had just arrived that day. Sensei also said he was unfit to be a king. Of course, the king was very shocked to hear this, as were Annette and Tama, who could only gape as they watched Sensei leave. Annette and Tama immediately apologized and told the king that Sensei was an otherworlder. The king forgave and understood him. As Sensei left, Charlotte watched him from afar. Night fell. Sensei and Annette were seen preparing to sleep. However, Sensei remained awake, looking out the window. Annette then asked Sensei if he couldn't sleep. Sensei replied that he had never been able to sleep well. Then, shyly, Annette asked who Sakshin really was. Sensei did not answer, and the atmosphere turned silent. Suddenly, a cat's tail was seen wagging, sticking out from Sensei's bed. Annette immediately uncovered Sensei's blanket and saw that Tama was sleeping soundly in Sensei's lap. Annette became furious with Tama, saying that it was embarrassing. Tama defended herself by saying she felt cold, and that was what her species usually did to get warmth. The two continued to argue. Sensei decided to leave his room and walk down the corridor. Unintentionally, Sensei encountered Charlotte, who seemed to be enjoying the nighttime scenery. He greeted her, and Charlotte welcomed him. Charlotte said she was currently looking at the vast and beautiful lake before her. Sensei remarked that it was such a beautiful view that it made him want to drown himself. Hearing this, Charlotte was very shocked. She thought Sensei had very serious problems to think that way. But Sensei then replied that it seemed like Charlotte had bigger problems than he did right now. Charlotte fell silent, then said she still couldn't choose between Gomez and Otto. Gomez had come to the castle not long ago, but he immediately became the most relied upon soldier among the others. The king trusted Gomez's strength. Hence, perhaps for that reason, Charlotte should choose him. However, Otto was her childhood friend. Whenever Charlotte felt sad, Otto would write a song and come to sing it for her. Charlotte was very confused about whom to choose. Hearing this, Sensei chuckled. He remarked that Charlotte, unlike himself, was a very kind-hearted girl who cared deeply for her father. Sensei shared that his life had always been problematic. He had tried to commit suicide and double suicide several times, which greatly troubled his father and family. However, Sensei never once told anyone else to choose how he should live his life. Charlotte was surprised by what Sensei revealed. As he was leaving, Sensei suggested that Charlotte should choose for herself what she wanted to pursue. The next morning, the king invited Sensei, Annette, and Tama back to see him. Gomez and Otto were already there. They were invited because Charlotte had finally decided who she would marry. So, the king wanted Sensei and his friends to be witnesses. Annette then predicted that Charlotte would choose Gomez if she considered the kingdom's future. Meanwhile, Tama believed Otto was a more suitable match for Charlotte. The king then ordered Charlotte to walk toward the man she had chosen and say her vows. Charlotte started to move away from the king and began walking. She said she had asked herself what she wanted and had now made her decision. Holding Sensei's hand, Charlotte declared that her choice was to commit double suicide with Sensei. Of course, the king was very shocked, as were everyone else there. Even Annette fainted immediately. They could not believe what they heard. Charlotte explained that after talking with Sensei the previous night, she realized something. Whenever Charlotte felt sad, Otto would write a song and come to sing it for her. But upon remembering, he also came when Charlotte was not feeling sad. He made a ruckus all night, even the previous night. Charlotte believed he just wanted to show off his newest song to someone. Otto only smiled slightly upon hearing this. Then Charlotte also said she couldn't marry Gomez either because he smelled a bit. Gomez looked shocked. The king then ran towards Charlotte, telling her to choose her husband. Charlotte angrily said that her father was a fool. Why was he forcing her to marry someone without asking for her opinion first? In fact, Charlotte did not want to get married right now, and in the end, no one cared about her feelings except Sensei. Sensei was the only person who asked for Charlotte's opinion and respected it. Sensei smiled, concluding that Charlotte's reason for not wanting to marry and committing double suicide with him made sense. Suddenly, Gomez threw down his iron helmet. Everyone turned to look at Gomez. Gomez's appearance changed, and he said that Charlotte indeed had a sharp sense of smell. Now, Gomez looked like a bull monster. He revealed his true form, which was actually a servant of the wrathful demon lord. Gomez planned to take over the kingdom by becoming its king and then handing it over to the demon lord. He didn't expect Charlotte to uncover his disguise. When Sensei asked if Charlotte had known about his disguise, it turned out that Charlotte hadn't realized it. She just thought Gomez smelled a bit. Gomez became even angrier, intending to kill everyone there. Tama tried to wake Annette, who was still unconscious, but she wouldn't wake up. The soldiers all ran towards Gomez to attack him, but Gomez easily defeated them all. Since Annette wouldn't wake up, Tama had to attack Gomez herself. She jumped and kicked him right in the head. It turned out Tama was a martial arts expert at level 14. Otto said he would also help by singing a song. Otto was a wandering minstrel at level 89. Tama was shocked to see Otto's high level. Otto started playing his musical instrument. Tama thought it was a buff skill, but nothing happened. Otto was just singing his newest song. Only Sensei seemed to enjoy the song. Suddenly, Gomez began his attack, targeting Tama. He ran very fast, aiming his horns at Tama. Quickly, Tama ducked and counterattacked by kicking and punching Gomez. But it seemed her attacks had no effect on Gomez. He then attacked with his horns, slightly grazing Tama. She became wary of Gomez's horns, as they were not only hard but also sharp. Gomez quickly prepared for another attack. Sensei suddenly told Gomez that he should kill him and Charlotte first since they already wanted to die. The king and Tama were, of course, very shocked by his statement. Gomez, with his sinister grin, laughed and agreed. After killing them both, Gomez planned to kill the king, burn the city, and slaughter all its inhabitants without leaving a trace. Sensei was firm in his resolve, but Charlotte seemed hesitant. Then, with all his strength, Gomez charged at Sensei and Charlotte, intending to gore them both. Tama and the king were powerless to act. Just before Gomez's horns could hit him, Charlotte said she didn't want to die yet. She wanted to live and protect the kingdom's people. Hearing this, Sensei sighed and said that was Charlotte's true desire. Charlotte was indeed a very kind-hearted princess. Sensei then pushed Charlotte away to protect her from Gomez's horns. Sensei stood still, ready to take the hit. Unexpectedly, Annette had regained consciousness and immediately used the spell Stout Barrier of Light, Shield, creating a shield that protected Sensei from Gomez's attack. Annette said that as long as she was by his side, She wouldn't let Sensei die. Annette turned out to be a priestess at level 18. Gomez kept trying to break through the shield Annette had made, but he couldn't, and it ended up breaking his horns. Gomez was thrown back. Tama seized the moment, leaping and using the attack, Wildcat Strike, right at Gomez's stomach, sending him flying back through the wall and into the middle of the lake. Tama and Annette felt very relieved. Unexpectedly, the king approached Charlotte and knelt, apologizing to her. He regretted forcing Charlotte to do something without considering her feelings. He realized that he was unfit to be both a king and Charlotte's father. With a smile, Charlotte forgave her father and expressed her desire to talk about the kingdom and their relationship. The king gladly agreed. Sensei smiled, remarking that he had failed to die once again. The next day, Charlotte had become the queen of the kingdom, ruling with great authority. The kingdom's soldiers respected and obeyed her. In a vast meadow, Tama and Annette were walking while pulling the coffin with Sensei inside. They discussed Charlotte, who, despite being only 16 years old, had made a significant decision by becoming a queen. From inside the coffin, Sensei said it was a decision Charlotte made herself, so they didn't need to worry about her. Sensei then remarked that dying women certainly are beautiful, but women who stand on their own 2 feet are also beautiful. Tama and Annette didn't care about that statement. They were more concerned about why Sensei wouldn't walk on his own 2 feet. On a mountain road, Annette and Tama were walking, pulling a coffin that contained Sensei. Tama complained that she was hungry, so they decided to take a short break. Besides being hungry, they were also very tired. Sensei peeked out from inside the coffin and asked if it was time to eat. Annette then offered Sensei some bread. Sensei asked if there was any boiled tofu. Since there wasn't, he closed the coffin again. Annette noted boiled tofu in her book, intending to look for it in the next town. Tama could only watch and wonder. Annette then unfolded a map. Tama asked how much longer it would take to reach her home. Tama's home was in Grun, and it would take a few more days. However, Annette intended to stop by the Zweiten Temple first. This was because reincarnations from other worlds usually arrived at one of the 4 temples in that world, then traveled to the Demon King's castle. But Sensei's goal wasn't to defeat the Demon King. He was looking for Sachan. Therefore, they needed to visit all 4 temples to gather information. Tama was a bit shocked to hear this, because if they were unlucky, they might have to travel around the world. Calmly, Annette agreed. Tama still couldn't believe Annette's decision. Annette then said that she actually didn't want Sensei to fight the Demon King. She didn't want Sensei to be in danger. Tama then teased Annette, saying that she must like Sensei. Annette's face turned red. She didn't admit it but said that Sensei had enlightened her during her despair in the task she had to undertake. So now it was her turn to help Sensei. Tama then continued, asking what if Sachan turned out to be Sensei's lover. Annette's face turned pale, and she said that was why she had to confirm it herself. Tama felt sorry for her, but she kindly promised to accompany her, but only until she reached her home. Annette turned her face away, saying thank you in an unenthusiastic tone. Tama was a bit annoyed because she knew Annette actually wanted to be alone with Sensei. Tama then asked if Annette was allowed to enter the temple since she had just left her duties. Annette said not to worry, because the head of the Zweiten Temple was her friend, and she didn't leave her duties without saying goodbye. She had already sent her familiar to deliver her resignation letter. But it turned out that Annette's familiar was already there, biting Sensei's head. When Annette asked, it turned out the resignation letter was still with the familiar and hadn't been delivered. Annette angrily chased away her familiar. Sensei saw this and felt sorry for Annette's familiar because it had returned to its master but was scolded instead. Then Sensei named the creature Melos. It immediately flew around, feeling very happy. On the other hand, Annette felt very regretful and apologized to the gods because Melos didn't do its job well, causing her to neglect her duties without permission. Then suddenly, birds flew around, and Melos looked very anxious and then fled. A strong wind arose, and a dragon quickly landed in front of them. Annette and Tama panicked upon seeing it. Dragons were the strongest monsters on Earth, and now they didn't know why it was there. The dragon roared, and Annette and Tama could only stand in astonishment. Unexpectedly, someone suddenly appeared behind them and ordered the dragon named Ryuka to be quiet. She approached the dragon and petted its head. Now the dragon looked calm and didn't resist. Annette and Tama were just stunned to see it. This person then told Annette and the others to leave because there were many monsters there. Seeing the coffin, she also thought there had already been casualties. But Annette said that the one inside the coffin was a rather odd otherworlder. Immediately, this person looked angry. After removing her cloak, it turned out she was a woman. She said she would kill all otherworlders. The woman emitted an extraordinary aura of power. Then with one hand, she created a magic circle and shot magic at Sensei. Annette quickly cast shield magic. She struggled to withstand the magical attack, but the shield magic was not strong enough and eventually shattered. Sensei, Annette, and Tama looked helpless. The woman moved closer to them. Then, with just one glance, she immobilized Tama and Annette. Using magic, the woman revealed a logo on her chest. Upon seeing the logo, Annette realized that it was the Demon King's logo. The woman prepared to attack again, casting magic with both of her hands. Sensei then stood up and told her to stop endangering others. If she wanted to target otherworlders, she should only focus on him. Sensei walked closer to the woman and said that he was her opponent. He offered himself to be attacked as she pleased. He was ready to die at any time. Without hesitation, the woman immediately attacked Sensei with her hand, piercing through his body. Sensei fell to the ground. She walked away from Sensei while introducing herself as Waldelia. Annette and Tama looked extremely panicked and then fainted. Unexpectedly, Sensei was still able to stand up. Holding his stomach, Sensei said that he once had the urge to stab someone else because of his intense hatred, but he only went as far as sending a threatening letter. At that time, Sensei had lost his sanity because of his intense hatred. Sensei thought that maybe that was what was happening to Waldelia. Staring at her face and holding her cheek, Sensei said that her eyes looked sad. Sensei wanted Waldelia to tell him, but she remained silent and then left on the dragon named Ryuka. Waldelia was still confused by what Sensei had just done. She also became curious about who Sensei really was. From behind a rock, Melos saw Sensei, Annette, and Tama unconscious and helpless. On a rainy day, a priestess from the Zweiten Temple opened the temple door and saw Annette and the others unconscious. Melos had brought them there. Naturally, the priestess was very worried and immediately tried to wake Annette, asking what had happened. Annette then said not to worry about her, but to please help Sensei, who was severely injured at that time. The priestess quickly rushed to treat Sensei with magic and healing potions. The next morning, Sensei was already healthy again and was seen looking at poisons being sold in the market. The seller explained that the poison would be very useful against monsters by throwing it at them. But unexpectedly, Sensei drank it immediately. Of course, the seller and Tama, who was there, were shocked. Angrily, Tama said that he shouldn't have done that, especially after just miraculously surviving his wounds. Sensei then said that because he was so healthy, he felt unwell. Annette and the priestess from the Zweiten Temple, who turned out to be named Yisha, were also there. Annette was very grateful to her and promised to repay the favor. Annette then asked if she knew a reincarnated girl named Sachan. Yisha replied that she didn't know her and that Sachan had never come to her temple. Annette then wondered where she could be. Yisha's face immediately looked angry. She asked why Annette was wandering with an otherworlder. She was also shocked to hear that Annette suddenly quit her job without notice. However, on the other hand, Yisha felt relieved because she thought Annette was too naive for that job. They both already knew that no otherworlder was sane. They were only given power by the gods to defeat the Demon King, but they only used their power for their selfishness. Suddenly, a male otherworlder with a rap style approached them. The man was named Kotaro. Annette and Yusha looked at him cynically. Annette and Yusha ignored him and continued chatting. Feeling ignored, Kotaro then showed his power, which was mass production. He could create unlimited currency in that world. Kotaro continued to show off his power in front of Annette and Yusha. This made Yusha feel annoyed, and she threw the coins Kotaro created at his face. Kotaro then ran away angrily. Yusha then said that all otherworlders behaved that way. Annette then argued that Sensei was different from other otherworlders. Yusha didn't believe her because just by looking at Sensei's face, she already knew that Sensei was a destructive person. Yusha was worried that something bad would happen if Annette continued to be with Sensei. Annette then said that without Sensei, she wouldn't be who she was now. Sensei had changed her destiny. Sensei walked up to Annette and said that he had some medicine to buy. Without thinking, Annette gave him a lot of money. Seeing that, Yusha thought that Annette's sanity had already been ruined. Yusha then asked what power Sensei had. Annette replied that Sensei had no power at all. However, despite that, he still risked his life fighting the Demon King to protect Annette and Tama. Hearing that, Yusha was stunned. She said that the Demon King had been defeated by an otherworlder 7 days ago. Annette was also shocked to hear that. Then the scene shifted to the Demon King's castle. There was a dragon roaring loudly. A man sitting on the blood-soaked throne then said that no matter how much it roared, its master would never return because he had destroyed him. From a hill, Waltilia looked at the Demon King's castle and said, "Father." Annette and Tama were already in their inn room. Tama looked shocked after just being told that the Demon King had been defeated. Annette looked very happy because that meant Zauberberg was now at peace. However, Tama wondered who the woman they met earlier was. Annette was also confused, especially since Sensei had just arrived in this world 7 days ago. Tama thought, why was Sensei reincarnated from another world if the Demon King had already been defeated? Sensei, who had been busy with his papers, suddenly tore them up and lay down. Sensei said he had wanted to start writing since coming to this world, but he was always stuck, so now he was despairing. Hearing this, Annette became interested. She thought Sensei might be writing about their journey or even about their meeting. However, Sensei replied that he had not written about Annette at all. Annette immediately felt very sad hearing this. Sensei said he had been inspired when he met Waldelia and hoped for another event that could rekindle his spirit. Annette had an idea to take Sensei around the town to relax because she also wanted to buy something for him. Unexpectedly, Annette wanted to buy armor for Sensei. The armor looked very large, but Annette said it was very useful for deflecting magic since they never knew when or who would attack them. Sensei did not seem bothered by the armor, but he looked unable to move. Annette and Tama left Sensei there and went shopping. Yusha accidentally saw something surrounded by children. She was shocked when Sensei greeted her. Yusha then approached Sensei and said that from now on, Annette would be with her. Yusha said that Annette was too naive, which made her too trusting of others, but Annette would be unfortunate if she stayed with an otherworlder. As her friend, she didn't want that to happen, so Yusha pleaded with Sensei to disband his party with Annette. Sensei just smiled and said that whether Annette wanted to join or not was her decision and not Yusha's business, because Annette was not a bird in a cage. Sensei also asked why Yusha concluded that Annette would be unfortunate. Yusha replied that it was because Sensei was an otherworlder, and she didn't trust otherworlders at all. Yusha was shocked when suddenly there was a wolf's howl. The sound came from the middle of the town, where a blonde-haired man was walking on a wolf. Kotaro and several other wolves were also walking with him. As many people gathered, Kotaro, in his rap style, said that the man was sent from heaven to lead everyone. He was Suzuki, an otherworlder. Suzuki then started to give a speech. He said that recently, the Demon King had been defeated by a group of otherworlders. Of course, this surprised the villagers. They all then cheered and praised the otherworlders. Suzuki continued his speech, saying that the peace had been brought by the otherworlders who risked their lives. Therefore, now was a new era led by otherworlders, which would be known as the Great Hero Age. And now, the town of Vale would be led by Suzuki. Of course, the villagers did not want to accept this so easily. They were confused about what was happening. Kotaro then spoke again in his rap style, telling the people there to kneel before Suzuki. Kotaro then accidentally saw Anna and told Suzuki that she was the one who had mistreated him. Suzuki, arrogantly, got off the wolf he was riding. He looked displeased that someone had mistreated an otherworlder. Anna tried to defend herself, saying it was just a misunderstanding. But Suzuki didn't want to listen. He walked up to Anna, held her head, and said, "Be a good girl." Suzuki patted Anna's head and then used his skill, Pet. Anna appeared trapped in a cage, her eyes turned black, and she immediately bowed her head. Kotaro approached Anna and looked at her condition. He said that the purer someone is, the faster they will be controlled by Suzuki's skill. Tama couldn't contain her emotions and grabbed Kotaro by the collar, asking what he had done to Anna. Kotaro said that it was already too late. Anyone whose head was patted by Suzuki would become his slave. Tama saw Anna still bowing her head, not moving at all. Tama prepared to hit Kotaro and demanded that he dispel the skill's effect immediately. But without Tama realizing it, Suzuki was already behind her and then placed his hand on Tama's head. Instantly, Tama also bowed her head. Then, arrogantly, Suzuki told everyone there that no person or monster could resist his overpowering skill. Pet. In the crowd, Isha walked toward Suzuki and ordered him to stop what he was doing. She said she had never taught Suzuki to use his gift in such a way. Firmly, Isha declared that the town of Vale would never surrender to him. Everyone there agreed with and supported Isha, and they would never submit to Suzuki. Then, with an evil smile, Suzuki said that in that case, he would destroy the entire town and build a new kingdom. He then ordered his wolf monster to attack. People ran in fear, trying to save themselves. Isha called Suzuki a bastard. Suzuki responded that Isha should call him hero, like when they first met. Suzuki then left the place, saying he would use Isha's church as his castle. Isha was very angry, but she couldn't do anything. A while later, the town was in ruins because of the monster attack led by Suzuki. Tama, who had fallen under Suzuki's skill, also attacked Sensei, who was fortunately protected by armor bought by Annette. Calmly, Sensei remarked that what Annette had said earlier was true. They wouldn't know when or who would attack them. The armor protecting Sensei slowly cracked from Tama's attacks, and when the armor shattered, its helmet flew off and hit Tama's head, knocking her out. Sensei then put Tama into a nearby barrel and closed it. Suddenly, Isha was thrown and hit a wall near Sensei. Sensei greeted her with a smile. Isha then said that this was the true nature of the Otherworlders. Not only do they use the gifts they receive for their personal gain, but their greed also cannot be stopped, and they lose control. Isha remembered that Suzuki wasn't like this when he came to that world. He was a quiet and cowardly person. Hearing Isha's story, Sensei began to take notes. Naturally, Isha wondered why Sensei was taking notes. Sensei explained that it was very interesting. Suzuki was a man who could ignite his inspiration. Sensei then asked where Suzuki was now. Isha explained that Suzuki was currently at the church. Sensei then headed towards the church. Of course, Isha was worried, especially since Sensei had no gift at all. Sensei then said he had just been inspired to write a masterpiece. Isha decided to go with him. Finally, they arrived in front of the church. Sensei appeared very calm, unlike Isha, who was extremely panicked. Isha said that there was no way Sensei could win against another worlder who possessed a gift. If Sensei rashly opened the church door, he would only be killed by the monsters controlled by Suzuki. Sensei then pulled out a poison from his clothing. Isha felt a bit relieved, thinking that Sensei wasn't reckless and had a strategy, killing the monsters there with poison. But Isha was shocked when Sensei drank the poison himself. Nearly desperate, Isha crawled and suggested they launch a surprise attack through the back door. However, Sensei ignored her and casually opened the church door. Isha could only gape in disbelief. They finally entered the church and immediately confronted Suzuki, Kotaro, and Suzuki's monsters. Seeing Sensei, Suzuki assumed that he was someone Isha had asked for help. Sensei greeted Suzuki and said that he was someone interested in him and intended to write a novel about him. Arrogantly, Suzuki thought that Sensei would write a saga about Suzuki the hero who conquered another world. Sensei bluntly denied it and said he would write about a man falling into the abyss of greed after receiving power beyond his abilities. Sensei was intrigued by Suzuki, who truly reflected human nature. Suzuki felt insulted by Sensei. He then ordered his monsters to kill Sensei. Sensei didn't seem afraid at all. He continued writing in his book. Fortunately, Isha quickly used her magic, pointed ray of light, Bilane, and managed to incapacitate several monsters. However, one monster slipped through and almost bit Isha. She blocked it with her staff. Seeing this opportunity, Suzuki ordered another monster to attack Isha with a fireball spell. Sensei remained calm, still writing in his book. Unexpectedly, an iron helmet deflected the fireball, sending it back towards Suzuki and his group. It turned out that Melos was inside the iron helmet. Sensei thanked him, recalling that Annette had said the armor she gave him could even deflect novice-level spells, as Melos had just demonstrated. Now, Kotaro panicked, but Suzuki still had his strongest monster. He immediately commanded it to attack Sensei. Suzuki was delighted to see the monster successfully bite Sensei, confident that it would kill him. But unexpectedly, the monster's mouth and head started turning black, and it fell and slowly disintegrated. A notification appeared, indicating that Sensei had defeated the monster with his poison. Of course, Suzuki and Kotaro were shocked to see their strongest monster die instantly. Isha couldn't believe what she was seeing either. She quickly decided to heal Sensei's wounds with her magic. Kotaro then fled the scene in fear. Isha ordered Suzuki to surrender, but he wasn't ready to give up. With a snap of his fingers, he called forth Annette, who had been affected by his pet skill. Suzuki handed Annette a knife and commanded her to kill Isha and Sensei. Annette began to attack Isha, who blocked the attack and jumped back. She then told Sensei that they couldn't attack Annette and suggested they retreat. Sensei closed his book, walked toward Annette, and said that Annette wasn't as weak as Isha thought. Seeing this, Suzuki laughed. He claimed that once someone was under the effect of his pet skill, it couldn't be dispelled. Annette would be his slave for life. Sensei responded that it was Annette's right to decide her fate, and that Suzuki had no right to dictate it. Sensei was now in front of Annette. He told her that she wasn't a bird in a cage, and reassured her. Annette seemed to struggle to resist stabbing Sensei with the knife, causing her hand to bleed. Angrily, Suzuki ordered Annette to kill Sensei again. Annette raised the knife once more. However, in her mind, she found herself alone in a cage surrounded by darkness. As Annette pondered, a ray of light suddenly appeared as Sensei opened the door and said something to her. Annette then pointed the knife at her own foot and fell unconscious. Sensei caught Annette as she collapsed. When Annette opened her eyes, her consciousness had returned. Sensei asked Isha to heal Annette's wounds. Suzuki became extremely frustrated, seeing his skill, which he believed to be overpowering, countered by Sensei. He then intended to end his own life with the knife he had given Annette. At the right moment, Sensei grabbed the knife and stopped him, saying, "Don't kill yourself." Sensei explained that he was writing a book about Suzuki and didn't want him to end the story so abruptly. Now, Sensei wanted to hear about Suzuki's life story. Suzuki looked panicked and frightened under Sensei's gaze. A flashback occurred, showing Suzuki in his original world, being bullied by other male students. Suzuki realized he was weak, and those stronger always treated him like a pet. Suzuki had considered suicide multiple times, but he didn't have the courage to go through with it. One evening, on his way home from school, he was upset when someone bumped into him and scolded him. But Suzuki couldn't do anything. He continued walking, and then a truck hit him. Suzuki was reincarnated in Zauberberg as a hero, greeted by Isha in her church. It was then that Suzuki received the gift of the skill Total Obedience, Pet. With his skill, Suzuki tamed several wolf monsters and defeated others. Suzuki realized he now possessed incredible power. As he walked through a crowd, many people looked at him with disdain. Someone also bumped into him, angrily accusing Suzuki, as an otherworlder, of blocking his way. Suzuki was reminded of similar experiences in his original world. He then used his pet skill, making the person who bumped into him fight with another. From that moment, Suzuki felt powerful and acted as he pleased. Back in the present, Suzuki lamented his inability to even commit evil properly. No matter where he lived, he was always just a coward. Sensei listened and wrote down everything in his book. Sensei then said it was fascinating. The novel about Suzuki was finally finished, a story about a pathetic man who wished to live as a hero in this world, but whose fragile heart prevented him from becoming either a hero or a villain. Sensei decided to title it No Longer Heroic. But then Sensei changed his mind and chose a more fitting title, No Longer Allowed in Another World. After writing the title, a bright light emanated from Sensei's book. Shining sheets of paper also surrounded Suzuki. Sensei thanked Suzuki because thanks to him, he was able to write something satisfying again. However, Sensei lamented that his work could not yet be called a masterpiece. Sensei then tore a sheet of paper into small pieces. A magic circle appeared on the floor where Suzuki stood. Anit and Isha, seeing this, recognized it as the magic circle used to summon an otherworlder. They were also confused as to why the circle was there. Bright light and flashes of electricity surrounded Suzuki. Anit noticed the teleportation effect was reversed. Then, from the magic circle, a beam of light shot up into the sky. Anit and Isha stood frozen, realizing that Suzuki was no longer there, assuming he had been sent back to his original world. Anit was shocked to see a notification window as she was sure that Sensei had no gift before, but now he had the skill writing storyteller. In her heart, Isha wondered if this was a special skill that only activated when facing a specific target, otherworlders. Isha also thought, does this mean Sensei was sent to this world to deal with the otherworlders? Now, Sensei lay on the floor of the church, feeling slightly disappointed because he had failed to create another masterpiece. Sensei wondered if there would be anyone who could ignite his inspiration. Isha was also becoming more curious about who Sensei really was. While lying down, Sensei asked where Suzuki had gone. Anit replied that Sensei had just sent him back to his original world. In the city, the monsters suddenly stopped attacking and moved away. Tama also woke up and regained her senses. Naturally, she was angry and confused, wondering why someone had put her in a barrel. Time passed, and Isha gave Sensei a new coffin, just as he had wanted. Sensei was very grateful and thanked Isha, saying the coffin was perfect for him. With a serious expression, Isha spoke with Anit. Isha mentioned that Sensei might play an important role in the future of this world. Therefore, Anit's journey with Sensei might be dangerous. Isha asked Anit to support Sensei, believing that Anit could do it. Before they left, Isha asked Sensei if Suzuki had become the way he was because he gained too much power in this world. Sensei responded with, "Who knows?" Isha also wondered if Suzuki had returned to his original world and was living in misery again. Sensei replied that Suzuki's story as a hero in this world was over, but his story in the original world was not. It was up to him to make it a masterpiece or not. Isha agreed with Sensei's opinion. Sensei then continued his journey with Anit and Tama. The scene then shifted to Suzuki's original world. He had finished school and was now applying for a job at a convenience store. When someone asked him for a reason, Suzuki couldn't answer and looked scared. The man interviewing him apologized and told him to come back to the store the next day for work. Suzuki walked out of the store, alone, down a dark street as snow fell. A piece of paper fell onto a pile of snow with the words "To be continued" written on it. On a snowy day, Isha teleported to the Weebye Cathedral in the Papal State. There, she was greeted by Wolf, who appeared to be drunk. Wolf explained that he was like this because he had to deal with dwarves every day, which was troublesome. He also complained about their bad body odor. Then, someone told Wolf that he shouldn't say such racist things, especially since they were in the papal state. It was Elton, a goblin who was the first non-elf to become a priest and had even risen to the rank of archbishop. Elton then remarked that this had nothing to do with race, pointing out that many elves were not like the stereotype of elves. Hearing this, Wolf felt offended and angry. He challenged Elton to exchange territories with him, claiming that Elton's territory was easier because it was always peaceful. Elton responded that it was due to the people's faith in the Queen's favor. He advised Wolf to change his way of thinking. Then, Cardinal Miller arrived and ordered them to sit. They all gathered at one table for a discussion. Cardinal Miller had invited them all there to report on the situation in their respective territories. However, someone arrived late. She looked very clumsy and even fell while descending the stairs. It was Aria, the new bishop of Erston Temple, replacing Bishop Onnet. Cardinal Miller then asked her to report on her territory. Aria said that in Deanstark, the holy land of mountains and flames, there was nothing to report. However, Cardinal Miller mentioned hearing that Charlotte, the daughter of the King of Roth, had inherited the throne. Aria apologized for missing that detail. Seeing her clumsy and hesitant behavior, Isha felt worried inside. Elton then introduced himself as the Archbishop of Vierton Temple, overseeing the Mitwoke region, the holy land of lakes and water. He reported that there were no issues in his area, attributing this to the Pope's authority. Wolf also introduced himself, stating that he was from Dritten Temple and managed the Samstag region, the holy land of deserts and earth. He reported that there were no significant problems in his area. However, Cardinal Miller mentioned hearing about frequent conflicts among the dwarves. Wolf said that such incidents were common and happened every day, and that they had even hit him while he was trying to mediate. Isha then introduced herself, stating that she was from the Donnerstag region, the holy land of forest and wine. She recounted that a few days ago, an otherworlder went on a rampage and destroyed half of the city of Vale. They were currently trying to repair the damage. It turns out that Cardinal Miller also invited all of them to discuss the otherworlders. As they already knew, the Demon Lord was defeated by a group of otherworlders. Because of this, the Pope decided to seal the magic circles connecting the worlds and stop summoning people from other worlds. Elton felt very relieved because the war against the cruel Demon Lord was over. Wolf was also grateful, as this meant he would be free from the crazy otherworlders. However, Cardinal Miller then said that this was where the problem lay. The 7 otherworlders who defeated the Demon Lord had taken over the Demon Lord's territory and become the new rulers. Isha and Aria were very shocked to hear this. Cardinal Miller then continued, saying that recently, the Pope had also received a declaration from these 7 individuals. With the power of the 7 otherworlders, they will transform Zauberberg into an ideal world. This news surprised everyone present. Miller said that the Pope felt very pressured because previously, the Pope believed that the otherworlders were angels set to save this world and love everyone. But now, it was as if those who had been considered his children were now opposing him. Miller then emphasized that they should consider this as a declaration of war against the Hellsyn Church worldwide. Now, the otherworlders had become fallen angels threatening the world. They also could not allow the otherworlders who were starting to cause chaos in every region. The disappearance of the Demon Lord's daughter, Waldelia, from her castle could not be ignored either. Miller stated that Zauberberg was now entering a new era. The mission of the bishops was to address this issue and protect the world's peace. Wolf complained that the situation had become complicated and overwhelming. Arya was also confused about how to fight such powerful individuals. Isha then remembered an incident where Sensei managed to return the otherworlders to their original world. Isha mentioned that there might be a way to deal with the otherworlders. Isha told Miller about Sensei, surprising the others. They could not believe there was such power. Isha then said that they could likely send the otherworlders back to their original world. Unexpectedly, the Pope arrived there. The others quickly knelt in reverence. The Pope then said that Sensei might be their beacon of hope. He asked Isha to explain in more detail. The scene then shifted to the Demon Lord's castle. A woman was humming there. Nearby, a man with a bow tie was pouring drinks into 2 glasses on the table. The man said that their comrades had gone to various places. He invited the woman to observe the future from there. Then, in the evening, Annette and Tama were seen nearing a settlement, dragging a coffin. Annette suggested that they stay there for the night before entering Grun. Tama was very happy because she would finally be able to sleep in a bed. Then a notification sound appeared, informing them that Tama had reached level 17 due to her diligent training. However, Tama felt sad. With a gloomy face, she couldn't believe that she had leveled up because of dragging a coffin. Annette then looked around, trying to find an inn. A young boy then told them that the inn was at the end of the street. Annette thanked him. The boy then said that he had useful information for adventurers. The boy mentioned that he was acquainted with heroes or otherworlders. So, if there were any parties that lacked confidence, they could be accompanied by otherworlders to ensure a safe and comfortable journey. That was the business he was running now. Tama imagined annoying otherworlders like Suzuki and Kataro. The boy continued to persuade them, asking for 40,000 Geniko in return for his service, promising to introduce them to otherworlders who could help. Tama refused the offer as it was too expensive, but Annette agreed without hesitation. Of course, Tama protested. However, Annette said it was cheap if it meant ensuring Sensei's safety. The boy also expressed his sorrow upon seeing the coffin they were carrying. He said that life couldn't be bought, and the person in the coffin would surely smile in heaven if they knew that heroes were accompanying their friends on their journey. Unexpectedly, Sensei rose from the coffin and said that he wasn't dead. The boy was utterly shocked. He couldn't believe there was a talking corpse. Tama then explained that Sensei was also a hero. The boy, however, was skeptical, especially since Sensei's appearance was not convincing. After taking the money from Annette's hand, the boy ran away, introducing himself as Nier, and promised to bring real heroes to them. Night fell. Annette was still waiting for Nier at the inn's door. The innkeeper asked if they were going to stay or not. Annette replied that she couldn't decide yet because she was waiting for someone. Sensei then said that Nier wouldn't return to them. According to Sensei, Nier's eyes looked like those of an adult. The innkeeper then asked if they had given money to Nier. Annette confirmed it. The innkeeper sighed and said that was always how his trick worked. The innkeeper mentioned that Nier had never met any heroes, so there was no way he could introduce them. They must have been tricked by Nier. Annette was instantly furious upon hearing this. The innkeeper then explained that Nier was an orphan who once lived in the village. He made money by scamming adventurers who came by. No adults ever scolded him, and he was considered a nuisance in the village. Sometimes, the innkeeper even felt sorry for him. The heroes Nier talked about might just be his fantasy. Under a bridge, Nier was seen sitting alone, holding a sword in his hand. He seemed to care deeply for the sword. Suddenly, someone grabbed him from behind, rendering him helpless. He was then taken to a house in the middle of a forest. There were 3 men there, and it turned out they were after the valuables Nier had. Nier was tied to a post, struggling and threatening that if anything happened to him, his friend, who was an otherworlder, would not stand by Lee. To his surprise, the 3 men were otherworlders. They demonstrated their powers. One had a weapon, another emitted light from his eyes, and another could harden his body like metal. Nier couldn't believe what he was seeing. One of them showcased his power to produce a weapon shaped like a crossbow, capable of piercing dragon scales, which he called Mad Gear. The man also knew that Nier had been making money by exploiting the name of otherworlders like them. They decided to punish Nier by executing him. Nier resigned himself to his fate, no longer believing that otherworlders like them were the heroes who saved this world. Just as the otherworlder with the crossbow was about to pull the trigger, Sensei suddenly appeared, shifting his hand so the shot missed and hit the leg of the man with the metal hardening ability. The man clutched his leg in pain. The others were confused about who Sensei was. Sensei then said they were not heroes but liars, causing children to imitate their lies. Someone with glowing eyes used his power to analyze Sensei, discovering that Sensei was also an otherworlder. They panicked, but after examining further, they found that Sensei had only 1 HP and was poisoned, which relieved them a bit. The one with the crossbow threatened to kill Sensei. Hearing this, Sensei turned and walked toward them. The one analyzing began to panic, noticing Sensei's vitality was rising drastically. Smiling, Sensei kept walking, telling them they had to aim precisely at his heart. The otherworlders were terrified, considering him a pervert. They fled, leaving Sensei and Nier behind. Sensei watched them, dismissing them as liars. Still tied up, Nier asked Sensei if he was a hero. Sensei replied that he wasn't that great. Sensei then said that adults are betrayed youths, but Nier was still young. It was too early for him to be an adult. According to Sensei, Nier's current eyes were just fine. Sensei walked out of the house, leaving Nier alone. Nier was stunned for a moment, then realized he was still tied up and that Sensei had left him there. The next day, Sensei, Onit, and Tama were preparing to continue their journey. Sensei looked very sleepy. Tama asked if he hadn't slept enough, and Onit asked where he had been last night. Sensei turned his face away. Onit became suspicious, wondering if Sensei had met a woman. Sensei simply said that last night was very enjoyable. Onit was angry but also curious about what Sensei had done. Sensei ignored her and closed his coffin. Suddenly, Nier appeared near them and greeted them. Of course, Tama was shocked and immediately angry. She demanded Nier return their money. Nier refused, saying he hadn't lied. Smiling, Nier reminded them that his promise was to introduce them to a valiant warrior. Tama then realized that the valiant warrior meant Nier himself. Nier then joined their party. They continued their journey and finally arrived at the landmark Castle Grun. A notification sounded, indicating that Sensei had gained 5 points. Sensei held his head and said he wanted to die. Nier, standing next to him, was worried. He wondered if something bad had happened to Sensei. Sensei replied that there was no day without suffering in life. Panicking, Nier reported this to Onit and Tama. However, Tama and Onit ignored him. Tama then suggested that Nier take turns pulling the coffin with her. Of course, Nier refused. Tama then questioned whether a valiant warrior would really let a woman drag a coffin the whole way. Finally, Nier reluctantly agreed to help. Tama smiled happily. After walking a short distance, their destination came into view. It was Tama's homeland, the city of Grun. Upon reaching the gate, they paused for a moment. Tama felt very happy, as it had been a long time since she had returned to her city. Onit noticed there was an inspection at the gate. Confidently, Tama said they would have no trouble entering, as she was quite well known there. Tama approached the gate, but the guards panicked and surrounded them. Tama and the others were, of course, confused by what was happening. They were then taken prisoner and thrown into jail. Onit sobbed, feeling she had done nothing wrong. Meanwhile, Sensei casually fell asleep, resting his head on Malos. In the prison, Onit continued to cry. Tama had been separated from the 3 of them. Nier suspected that Tama had become a wanted criminal by the kingdom for committing some crime, which caused the 3 of them to get caught up in it just for being with Tama. While the others were worried, Sensei, on the other hand, asked how executions were carried out in that world. Sensei asked with a smile on his face, imagining the various methods of execution he knew. Nier couldn't believe that was what Sensei was thinking about. He then said that, for now, it would be best if they could escape from the prison. Nier pulled something out of his hat and did something. It turned out that he easily unlocked the prison's padlock with a wire he had hidden in his hat. Onmate sarcastically remarked that this skill was not one a valiant warrior should have. But Sensei just patted Nier on the back. Nier felt very happy, but it turned out that Sensei wasn't pleased with what Nier had done either. Of course, Nier was sad because no one praised him at all. Because they were too noisy, the guards caught them and tied them up. Instead of being worried, Sensei asked and confirmed with one of the guards if they were going to be executed. Naturally, the guard became terrified of Sensei. Then, they were taken before the king. One of the king's ministers, named Briard, said that the crime they had committed was severe. Therefore, they would be executed. Of course, Annette and Nier were shocked, while Sensei just smiled. Annette protested, saying that they hadn't done anything. The king of the Grun Kingdom, named Siberian, then said that they had kidnapped the kingdom's princess, named Matilda. Annette became even more confused, as she had never done such a thing. Then Tama, who had changed her clothes, came and firmly stated that she had not been kidnapped. It turned out that Tama was the princess of the Grun Kingdom, whose real name was Matilda. Annette and the others were left speechless. Tama explained that she had just been traveling to various countries to train in martial arts and had accidentally met Annette and the others. Annette nodded in agreement with all of it. Tama then asked the king to free them. The king didn't agree so easily. He had a condition, which was that Tama had to comply with his wishes. Specifically, she had to swear not to do anything foolish again and behave as befits a royal descendant, just like her mother, Lapama. After seeing the condition of her friends, Tama reluctantly agreed to the king's request to behave as a proper princess. As she was leaving, Tama also apologized and thanked Sensei, Annette, and Nier. Briard then allowed them to leave. Annette and the others then went to a restaurant. Nier felt happy to be free, but Sensei was upset because he didn't get to be executed. They talked about how shocked they were, not expecting Tama to be a princess. Annette also remembered how she had been so disrespectful to her. While they were chatting, a woman serving food overheard their conversation and asked if they knew Matilda. Annette confirmed that they did. The server then introduced herself as Kojika. She said that she had once served Matilda in the palace. Nier then recounted what had just happened to them and also about Tama. From Kojika's expression, Sensei knew she was aware of something. Sensei smiled, holding his book and pen, and asked Kojika to tell him what she knew about Tama and the king. Sensei said that the first time he met Tama, she was being captured by a tree monster, and now she was imprisoned by her own father in the palace. So, in Sensei's opinion, Tama is an interesting woman, and he couldn't help but be fascinated by her. Annette then pointed out that now that they know Tama's identity as a princess, it would be inappropriate to dig into her past. But Sensei didn't care, saying it wasn't his concern because, no matter what, she was still Tama. Kojika then began to share what she knew. The scene then shifted to the kingdom, where Tama was seen standing and looking out the window at night. She recalled the events from earlier in the day, where Annette and Nier had funny expressions on their faces after finding out that Tama was a princess. However, Sensei was different. His expression remained the same as always. Tama wondered where they were now and what they were doing. Then, Tama accidentally noticed someone standing on the roof. Suddenly, a large mouth appeared and spat out a black orb, destroying a building. The king and his troops came out to assess the situation. There, they saw a man lounging in a chair. The man knew he was now in the Grun Kingdom, a place where demi-humans lived. He then remarked that he had never eaten a demi-human female before and wanted to try it. The man introduced himself as Kaibara, one of the heroes who had killed the demon lord and saved that world. But he was aware that he was now known as the fallen angel of gluttony. The king realized that he was one of the 7 fallen angels, as reported by Helsen. Kaibara stated that his current goal was to devour the kingdom. Of course, the king knew he had to be cautious because Kaibara was a gift holder. Upon hearing that, the king's guards denounced him and moved to attack Kaibara. But with a snap of his fingers, Kaibara summoned a large mouth near the king's guards, which then bit them. Kaibara's own mouth seemed to chew along with the giant mouth. Kaibara complained that their bodies were full of muscle and difficult to eat. He said what he really wanted was to eat demi-human females. Naturally, Kaibara's words made everyone there furious. They were eager to beat him, but the king ordered them to retreat. He wanted to face Kaibara himself. The king was furious and wouldn't let Kaibara leave alive. The king then removed some of the accessories he was wearing and prepared for battle. Kaibara once again summoned a creature in the shape of a large mouth, which spewed black energy at the king. The king blocked it using the rubble from the building in front of him. The king could even deflect a direct attack from the large-mouthed creature. The king then attacked Kaibara with his technique, Thunderbolt. Kaibara appeared to be in pain, but it turned out he was just pretending. The king couldn't believe that Kaibara was still standing after taking a direct hit from him. Kaibara then said that such an attack would kill a normal human. It seemed that Kaibara could use the skills of any creature he ate. He had apparently eaten a golem the day before, which allowed him to harden his stomach and protect himself from the king's fatal attack. The king then removed more weights from his hands. The king appeared very serious. He was about to unleash his ultimate technique. Brayard knew that it seemed the king wanted to eliminate Kaibara. The king said that since Kaibara had killed his troops, there would be no mercy for him. The king intended to wipe out Kaibara with a single strike of his ultimate technique. However, just as they were both ready to clash, Tama arrived and called out to her father. Both of their attentions were diverted. Tama then said that she would also join the fight. The king, of course, forbade her and said that Tama could never replace Leon. Tama's eyes sparkled upon hearing that. The scene then shifted to a dining area where Kojika was telling Annette and the others that Tama had a twin older brother named Leon. He was supposed to be the heir to the throne of the Grun Kingdom. Prince Leon was brave, and Princess Matilda was kind-hearted. The people of Grun believed that peace would be maintained as long as they were there. But on a stormy night 10 years ago, during a journey, they were caught in a landslide. Prince Leon and Queen La Palma died in the incident. This caused the king to be deeply saddened and depressed for a long time. Tama was very upset seeing her father like that. So, she decided to take Leon's place and bring peace to her father. Tama ordered Kojika to cut her long hair so that she would resemble Leon. However, the relationship between Tama and the king grew more strained because the king did not accept Tama's decision. Back on the battlefield with Kaibara, the king became angry at Tama's arrival and said that Tama's martial arts were completely useless. Tama then leaped towards Kaibara, intending to attack him. Kaibara snapped his fingers, and the large-mouthed creature immediately appeared beside Tama, ready to devour her. Tama could only be shocked and resigned to her fate. At the crucial moment, the king pushed Tama out of the way, but this caused the king to lose his arm. Kaibara only smiled slyly and said that he actually wanted to experience the king's ultimate technique, but it seemed that now the king could no longer use it. Kaibara also apologized for eating the king's arm and showed it to Tama. Of course, this made Tama furious. Just as she was about to leap and attack him, Briard swiftly knocked Tama unconscious and carried her away from the scene. Kaibara could only watch the event unfold, smiling as he said that he would save the main course for later and that now he wanted to enjoy the other dish, the king. Annette and the others had just finished dinner, and Sensei thanked Kojika for her valuable story. They were all shocked when someone suddenly approached them. It was Briard carrying Tama. Briard then recounted what had just happened. Not long after, a massive explosion was heard at the king's residence. The people there were, of course, panicked and confused. They then saw their king in a pitiful state at his residence. Kaibara then revealed himself and introduced himself, declaring that he was now their new king. Kaibara said that as king, he only wanted to taste all the demi-human flesh there. Of course, only the flesh of women and children. As for the male demi-humans, he would just let them continue working as usual. There was an adult man who angrily scolded Kaibara, but in an instant, a large mouth appeared beneath his feet, causing him to fall and be devoured. The people were terrified by what they saw and tried to flee. However, Kaibara had already stationed the former Demon King's monsters all over the city to prevent their escape. Kaibara then entered the king's residence, dragging the king along with him. Sensei was seen closing his book as he observed Tama's fate. After being imprisoned by her father, she now ended up as a princess who lost her kingdom. Sensei thought that Tama's fate increasingly resembled that of a tragic heroine. However, Sensei said that the heroine he admired would never give in to a tragic fate. A flashback occurred where Tama was having her hair brushed by her mother. Shortly after, Tama regained consciousness. She realized she was now at Kojika's house. Tama then opened the door to check on the situation outside. Briard then told her that Kaibara had taken over the capital and intended to devour the citizens. Tama couldn't hold back her emotions and ran off, determined to fight Kaibara. But Briard restrained her. Annette and Kojika also tried to stop Tama. Tama felt sad because her father had lost due to protecting her. Moreover, Tama felt responsible for protecting the kingdom on behalf of her older brother, Leon. Annette then mentioned the tragedy of Clolone Pass. Annette recalled that tragedy after hearing Kojika's story. The tragedy had claimed the lives of 2 royal family members 10 years ago. Annette didn't know that they were Tama's mother and older brother. Annette also heard that all the citizens wept upon hearing the tragic news. According to Annette, this was the greatest proof that the royal family was deeply loved by its people. So, if they were to lose Tama as well, the citizens would surely fall into despair. Tama was shocked to hear Annette's words. Annette then told her to leave everything to her because, as a royal princess, Tama must not endanger herself. Annette assured Tama not to worry because they had a secret technique to defeat the other worlders. Annette, Sensei, and Nier then left Tama to face Kaibara. Briard remarked that Tama had kind-hearted friends. When they arrived at the gate, 2 ogre monsters were stationed there on guard. Annette ordered Sensei and Nier to step back. But calmly, Sensei walked forward and told the 2 ogre monsters that they had come to be eaten. Sensei continued by saying that the new king's speech earlier had truly touched his heart. Sensei also mentioned that he had always thought about how he would die. Before hearing Kaibara's speech, Sensei had never once considered dying by being eaten, so now he was very excited to do so. Sensei then commanded the 2 ogre monsters to quickly relay this to Kaibara. Naturally, the 2 ogre monsters were confused. Seeing this, Sensei scolded them, telling them to make a decision quickly. But unexpectedly, Annette and the others were thrown back into prison. Of course, Annette felt very sad and frustrated. Annette blamed Sensei, but then Sensei told Nier to use his skill again to unlock the cell so they could escape. Little Tama was seen hanging upside down from a tree with her legs while holding an apple. She was watching a mock battle duel between her father and her brother Leon. Leon looked very overwhelmed facing his father, but his father kept encouraging him, and Leon didn't give up. Briard, who was there, knew that Leon was struggling because he had a gentle heart. Meanwhile, his father, King Grun, said that this could be a problem. He also scolded little Tama, who was peeking from outside the window. The king said that she looked shameful for behaving like that and not acting like a proper princess. Little Tama then said that she also wanted to practice martial arts. She felt that her father was being unfair for only training Leon. The king, frustrated, got angry and ordered Tama to wear a dress and read books in her room like a proper princess. Reluctantly, Tama agreed. The king complained that his daughter was such a tomboy. Later, in her room, Tama's long hair was being brushed by her mother, Lapama. Lapama knew that Tama had just been scolded by her father. Tama also complained and said that she hated her father. She even wished she hadn't been born a princess. Then, her mother whispered something softly to Matilda and told Tama to listen. The scene then shifted back to the present, where Tama was facing Kaibara directly. Kaibara had already anticipated that Tama, whom he considered the main course, would come if he used her father as bait. Unfazed, Tama was ready to face Kaibara. Kaibara said that Tama was a rare delicacy, so it would be a shame to consume the main course all at once. Kaibara planned to give Tama some entertainment before he devoured her. He kicked an ogre monster in front of him to distract Tama, and in an instant, he was already in front of her, attacking with an electric punch. Tama was thrown backward, hitting the wall. Curled up in pain, Tama realized that the attack Kaibara used was her father's technique. Proudly, Kaibara said that it was his cheating ability, gluttony. In addition to increasing his abilities based on the meat he consumed, Kaibara could also use the abilities of the meat's original owner. This meant that Kaibara would attack Tama with her father's techniques before devouring her. Kaibara then prepared for his next attack. Meanwhile, in the king's residence, Sensei, Annette, and Nier had managed to escape from prison and were now walking down the corridor. Annette praised Sensei, believing it was his strategy that allowed them to infiltrate so easily. Annette and Nier mentioned that they had thought Sensei genuinely wanted to be eaten to end his life. But judging by Sensei's expression, it seemed he really did want to be eaten. They finally arrived in front of her room. Sensei wanted to enter the room, while Annette and Nier thought they were going to confront Kaibara to take him down. Eventually, they all entered the room. Inside, Annette noticed a picture of La Palma, Tama's mother, hanging on the wall. It turned out to be the queen's chamber. Annette was shocked when she saw Sensei casually opening a storage cabinet. Sensei also seemed to want to open a drawer, but he struggled because it was locked. Sensei immediately looked at Nier and said it was his turn now. Nier complied and used his tools and skills to unlock the drawer. The drawer opened and Sensei smiled when he saw its contents, a book, ink, and a pen. The scene then shifted back to the battlefield between Tama and Kaibara. Tama looked extremely exhausted, while Kaibara only smirked arrogantly. With lightning speed, Kaibara attacked Tama with a kick, sending her flying upward. In midair, Kaibara struck her again, causing Tama to crash hard into the ground. Kaibara remarked that Tama's martial arts were completely useless. Tama appeared utterly defeated. In her weakened state, Tama recalled her brother, Leon, who constantly trained in martial arts. When Tama asked him why he always practiced, even though he didn't like fighting, Leon replied that it was true. He wasn't good at fighting. Maybe Tama was more talented than him, but that's why Leon felt he had to work harder than anyone else. He also wanted to become strong like their father and be a prince capable of protecting Tama, their mother, and the kingdom. Back in the present, her father kept urging Tama to stop fighting because her opponent was far stronger. Tama knew this, but she said she wouldn't give up so easily. Her determination was just like her brother Leon's. Hearing this, Kaibara only laughed. He said that he was actually happy because consuming the flesh of someone full of spirit made him more excited. Kaibara then summoned his giant-mouthed creature. He said that his boring days in the past would be fully compensated. A flashback occurred, showing Kaibara still in his old world. At that time, he was alive but felt dead inside. He was born into an incredibly luxurious mansion. His parents bought him everything he desired. Every day, he ate lavish meals. Yet, his heart grew increasingly empty. One day, he wanted to feel life. Holding a fork and knife, he looked at the maid beside him. Then suddenly, Kaibara tried to stab the maid with the fork. The fork managed to strike the maid, but of course, others around him stopped him from going any further. Kaibara felt unsatisfied because his desire wasn't fulfilled. Kaibara felt that his life had always been like that of a farm animal trapped in a cage. Eventually, Kaibara escaped and wandered around the city. In his heart, he thought that people saw him as a happy person. While walking, he saw a man eating instant noodles by the roadside. For some reason, Kaibara suddenly kicked him. After he was satisfied, he walked away dejectedly, saying that he was the most miserable person in the world. Without realizing it, he found himself in the middle of the road with a large truck speeding toward him. Yet, Kaibara just stood still and smiled. That was Kaibara's story before he was reincarnated into the current world. In this new world, Kaibara was, of course, very happy because he could eat anything he wanted freely. He no longer felt like a farm animal. The giant-mouthed creature then approached Tama to devour her. Seeing this, Kaibara laughed heartily, while the king was powerless to do anything. But fortunately, at the right moment, Sensei suddenly appeared in front of Tama, blocking the creature from devouring her. Sensei commented that Kaibara's story was incredibly boring. Tama was shocked that Sensei was there protecting her. Kaibara, who had been silent until then, snapped his fingers, ordering the creature to eat Sensei as well. However, the creature just stood still, trembling. Kaibara was confused as to why the creature had stopped. He had never experienced this before. Kaibara suspected that its instincts were rejecting the idea of eating Sensei. Kaibara then asked who Sensei really was. But before he could answer, Annette and Nier arrived at the scene and told Kaibara to stop committing his evil deeds. Annette said that Kaibara's time was up because Sensei had the power to erase otherworlders from this world. Kaibara only responded with a bitter smile. Annette then ordered Sensei to use his gift, Storyteller, to write a story for Kaibara so that he would return to his original world. However, Sensei said that he wouldn't do it. Annette was shocked by this response. Sensei then explained that someone who pretends to be miserable like Kaibara didn't deserve to have his story written by him. Hearing this, Kaibara became furious. He unleashed his power, causing an explosion from within himself that sent everything around him flying. With an angry glare, Kaibara declared that he would kill everyone before he devoured Tama. Tama felt incredibly frustrated and angry with herself. She believed that all these events were her fault for insisting on fighting and for thinking she could replace Leon. Tama began to cry. Sensei placed his hand on Tama's shoulder. He then pulled out a glowing book and told her that this was her story and asked her to read it. According to Sensei, the unfortunate fate Tama had experienced was worthy of being written as a story. Tama accepted the book. As she opened it, page after page flew into the air. From a distance, Annette saw that this was Sensei's gift. It turned out that his gift could also be used on someone other than an otherworlder. Annette activated her shield magic just as Kaibara suddenly attacked. Kaibara felt frustrated because he was being ignored. Meanwhile, Sensei was speaking with Tama, telling her that the more Sensei learned about Tama's past, the more he realized how kind-hearted she truly was. Tama was so kind-hearted that she was willing to suppress her true feelings. According to Sensei, Tama is a clumsy girl. When she was younger, she was confined by her father's vision, who wanted Tama to become a princess. After her family experienced a tragedy, she wanted to comfort her father, so Tama tried hard to replace her brother, who was the crown prince. However, her sincere feelings were never understood. On the contrary, those feelings only strained her relationship with her father. Over time, Tama lost her true sense of self. But in reality, Tama's late mother had already guided her on what she should become. Tama then recalled her mother's words, "Your life is yours alone. You must live according to your own wishes." Tama's mother also said that her father truly wanted Tama to live a happy life. Sensei continued, saying that Tama was now at a crossroads. Should she live as a princess according to her father's wishes, or should she live to replace her late brother and become the ideal prince? Tama pondered and looked down. Sensei then said that neither of those paths was truly Tama's destiny. Suddenly, Tama opened her eyes and realized the truth. From another angle, Kaibara saw a golden aura emanating from Tama's body. Her body now shone brightly. Sensei said that Tama's future story depended on her own choices. From afar, Tama's father saw a crest of a divine beast radiating from her hand. A flashback occurred, showing that although it was faint at the time, Leon had noticed the symbol on Tama's hand. Leon decided to report it to her father immediately. However, Tama forbade him from doing so because her father did not want her to pursue martial arts, and he would not be pleased to hear such news. Unbeknownst to them, their father had been aware of everything. He was hiding behind a tree nearby. The king realized that since that moment, the symbol had never appeared again on Tama's hand. He also realized that it was he himself who had sealed away his own daughter's natural talent. The king did this because he wanted to protect Tama from harm. Now, he regretted his actions. Seeing Tama's newly awakened power, Kaibara was still confident in his own strength. He began walking toward Tama. He believed that he was the predator and that everyone else was prey. Sensei then said that even when they were at the brink of despair, there would always be a glimmer of hope. Annette and Nier became energized and supported Tama. With confidence, Tama leaped toward Kaibara, ready to attack. Kaibara was prepared to counter Tama's attack with a skill he had learned from the king. Tama used a deceptive move to confuse Kaibara and then headbutted him. Kaibara, in pain and anger, prepared to punch Tama. However, Tama ducked and managed to touch Kaibaro's body, activating the Divine Beast Feast ultimate technique. Once Kaibara was hit by this technique, he was powerless. He was struck by the attack's effects and immediately fell unconscious. After using this technique, Tama also fainted. Annette quickly rushed to heal her with healing magic. Sensei then went to meet the king, intending to return a book belonging to La Palma that he had taken from her room earlier. It turned out to be a diary of the king's wife, and the king became angry because Sensei had read it without permission. However, the king also thanked Sensei for saving his daughter and guiding her. Sensei replied that he was merely writing a story. Briard, who was also present, observed the powerful ultimate technique that Tama had just unleashed. However, he noticed that the technique was still incomplete. Unexpectedly, Kaibara rose again, now in a monstrous form. The king was in disbelief, as Kaibara had been dead moments ago. Kaibara himself was confused as to how he could be alive again. Then, he smiled, recalling that he had secretly eaten the flesh of the demon lord, whom he and other worlders had defeated. Now, Kaibara felt an extraordinary power coursing through his body. He now believed he was at the top of the food chain. Kaibara conjured a large black magic circle, intending to destroy everything in front of him. But, unexpectedly, someone appeared and beheaded Kaibara. It turned out to be Waldelia, the daughter of the demon lord. Kaibara was still able to speak and realized that the demon lord's daughter was still alive. Kaibara then provoked Waldelia, saying that her father's flesh was delicious. Naturally, this enraged Waldelia. She unleashed a powerful magic attack, obliterating Kaibara and everything in her path. Waldelia then glared sharply at Annette and the others, causing them to feel terrified. But through the rising smoke, Sensei was already standing close to Waldelia. He greeted her as the woman with sad eyes. Waldelia looked at Sensei in surprise, wondering how he was still alive. Sensei did not answer the question but instead asked Waldelia if she felt any better now after killing the person who had killed her father. Waldelia's eyes widened at this question. She then said that next, it would be Sensei who she would kill. Waldelia flew away on her dragon. Nier was in awe of Sensei, who had managed to drive away such a terrifying woman. Sensei then remarked that even though Waldelia had avenged her father, her eyes still looked sad. One day, Sensei wished to write a story about the girl named Waldelia. The next day, the townspeople were seen working together to repair the buildings damaged by the events of the previous day. Annette and the others had already planned to leave the kingdom of Grun. Kojika, who was seeing them off, expressed her gratitude for Sensei and the others having saved the kingdom. Tama was not with them. She chose to stay in the castle and assist the king. Although Annette felt a bit of longing, she respected that it was Tama's own decision. In her room, Tama was sitting by the window, gazing outside. The king entered and asked what Tama was doing there. He mentioned that the room was meant for a graceful princess, not a tomboy. The king then told Tama that she was free to go wherever she wanted. Tama hesitated. The king reassured her, saying that he wasn't too old yet and didn't need protection from a beginner. Tama was still uncertain. The king then made her promise that when her journey was over, she would return home. Hearing this, Tama smiled. She had now decided to continue her journey with Sensei and the others. Tama quickly changed her clothes and jumped out the window. While hanging from a tree, she thanked her father and promised to return as a strong and cool fighter, just like him. Tama then left the castle. As the king looked at his wife's diary, he smiled, feeling that his message to Tama had been conveyed. In the middle of a flower field, Nier was seen dragging Sensei's coffin. Sensei complained because Nier wasn't as skilled at pulling the coffin as Annette was. Annette smiled, and Sensei commented that Nier had failed as a coffin bearer. Nier was confused and angry, saying that Sensei should walk on his own feet. But then Sensei said that it might not be necessary. Sensei had already sensed that Tama was running towards them from behind. Annette and Nier smiled broadly, delighted that Tama had rejoined them.